right? Being able to explain, okay, so the market is shifting. It's not crashing, at least it's not crashing right now. I mean, we'll see what things look like in 6 months, but it's not crashing right now. So how do we start that conversation with the seller? So when we sit down at the kitchen table with the seller, like, what's the first question that we ask to them when they're like, okay, well, I think I might sell the house, but tell me what's going on. Like, my first question is always, what do you think is going on? Right? Tell me about what your opinion is of what's happening in the market right now, because that'll give you a good starting point.
That's number one. And then the other thing is, what do you realistically think you could sell your house for? I always ask that because I need to know where their head's at.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think is going on is going to help you understand, are they listening to the media? Mm-hmm. Are they only 30 days behind, or have they gone full Monty on the other side of the pendulum and they're like, the sky is falling, my house is going to be worth 20% less next month than it is this month? Like are they there, or are they kind of in that neutral position? Like, look, I understand it's slowing down. I keep hearing it's slowing down. My neighbor, they didn't get an offer on their first weekend, so I understand a little bit about what's going on, but then you tell me, because that way you know how to craft your conversation, right, with the seller. You know where to start and how much work you have to do to get them to the correct answer.
Right.
If you can get them to the correct answer, some of them.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, I almost put this in the group, but I didn't. I think it got squirrel. But anyway, if you haven't listed a house, especially in Charlotte, if you haven't listed a house in the past 6 weeks, you better check in with some of your listing agent friends. Mm-hmm. Because in the past 4 to 6 weeks, there's been a significant shift in activity. And if you're only listing one house every 6 months, your conversation is completely different, because you're basing this off of what the market was like 6 months ago, what activity was like. So before you go on those listing appointments, like, I highly recommend check in with people that have taken listings recently in a similar price point and just ask them, hey, what kind of activity have you had? Like, what's your feedback been? Because then you can set the right expectations for your seller instead of saying the wrong thing based on like 6 months ago, and then you're going to constantly be chasing it. And that's no fun. We've all been there.
Yeah, because what happens, Lauren, and I think you both of you went through this recently, where it's like, shoot, I went on the market and we didn't get maybe but one showing that week, that first weekend, right? Yeah. And then your sellers are already freaking panicking on a Monday when they've only been on the market for 4 days, going, what the heck? Yeah. But we have to set those expectations. And I think the best way of doing it, we've talked about this before, Showing Time has great data. Mm-hmm. Showing Time will show you what to expect in terms of how many showings in that price point you're expected to be receiving.
Absolutely. And the data, your sellers cannot argue with data, right? So if you pull the actual report, you can say all day long, oh, well, showings are down. Showings are down on my listings. You can say all those kinds of things all you want. But until you can show them, like, once you can show them that report that actually puts it in writing in X's and O's or numbers, or however you want to say it, right, ones and zeros, like, that's when the rubber hits the road for your sellers, right? And they're like, okay, like, she's not just saying this. And I think it's also really important too, when Lauren was saying to get with your colleagues, make sure that it is the same price point too, right? Because the market is acting very, very differently in different price points depending on your local market, right? So like here in Denver, for example, I had a listing that we went under contract $50,000 over list price 2 weekends ago, where that same weekend I barely got 2 showings on $1 million house, right? So make sure that you're operating in those smaller brackets, because that will make a huge difference for you. And you don't want to inadvertently underprice something or something like that on a lower end property, right? When maybe realistically you can still get multiple offers and be over ask price and all of that.
But that's where that data comes in, right? So if you're looking at Showing Time and the showings are actually up between 500 and 600, but they're down between 600 and 700, you might not want to list the property at 610 from experience. Right. Maybe you want to do 600 or 590 or something like that. Like, it just isn't, when a market's shifting like that, you can't get like ahead of it, right? You almost have to be right under it right under that threshold so that you can continue to maintain some momentum. Because if you overprice or just even a little bit and the market continues to soften, you're just going to chase it and your days on market are going to just continue to go up. And you're actually doing your sellers a disservice by trying to get them that extra 10, 15,000 right off the bat.
Absolutely.
It's hard too, because you said this last night when we were talking about this. It's like your seller wants X amount and you're sitting here thinking that's 15, 20,000 over what you realistically should be listing it for. And then you're like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and I'll list it 10,000 below what you're really wanting. But you're doing them a disservice. You just said it yourself. You have to show them the data, what's happening. It's not necessarily meaning that the market's crashing, but it is softening, meaning instead of having 30 showings, set that expectation that we're going to be lucky if we get 8 showings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. And if you price it completely wrong and try to push the envelope, you're going to just mess everything up for yourself.